new technologies. Okay, so those kind of companies are still using XML, or else otherwise all other companies are using rest of the companies are using JSON only. Okay, so today we got to know yesterday like what is the use of JSON, like yeah Pankaj, I know. So what is the use of JSON? uh, Basically JSON is used to transport data between two applications. Okay, it will store and it will transport the data between two applications. For data transportation we are using JSON. It is also a platform independent language. Okay, it doesn't matter like in which technology, in which language the feature of the application is developed, it will store and transport the data between two applications. Okay, now and so many more things, like it supports so many data types like a string, number, boolean. Okay, we got to know how what like XML supports XML supports tree structure, whereas JSON supports map structure. Okay, and it is XML is an extension of HTML and JSON is an extension of JavaScript. So yeah, like this, maybe like I hope that all of you have written some beautiful uh, differences between this XML and JSON. Okay, so I have given yesterday I had given one assignment to you guys, like write down the difference between XML and JSON. So how many of you have written that assignment? I would just want to know, like, how many of you have written assignment in your notebook? I have done only three, four. Okay, only four peoples. Vivek, Chandan, Varsha, Sahid, Pankaj. Literally, I'm noting down all these names. Whoever are listening to me, whoever is doing assignment, okay, whatever the assessment I'm giving to you, working on it. So literally, I'm noting down all these names, okay, and I can cross check anytime. Okay, yes, Leha, Nidhi, Nivesh, Sumit assignment. Okay, sir. Okay, because if you're not doing assignments, if you're not writing all these things, all these important things in your notebook, so I will think like that you are not even listening in my class. Okay, uh, not taking any kind of interest in this API class. So that's why I'm continuously saying the same thing, that please, whatever we are learning here, it is very important. We have to make sure that each and every thing should be clear. Okay, so okay, so let's start the session. Yesterday we learned about yeah yesterday we learned about JSON. Okay, and basically we learned what is the difference between XML and JSON. So please allow me to share my screen. Okay, so we will learn further. Okay, uh, yeah, I hope my screen is visible. I hope it is visible. Okay, done. Thank you. Yeah. So today, in today's topic, now please concentrate here. In today's topic, we are going to learn about service-oriented architecture, SOA, service-oriented architecture. In the service-oriented architecture, it consists of three layers. First one is presentation layer, second one is business, and third one is database layer. All these three layers we already learned in our previous class of what of which in which class we learned this architecture of web application, three tier architecture. So we all know about all of we know about these three layers, like what is presentation business, what we have in presentation, what we have in business, and what we have in database layer. So let's discuss one again. In presentation layer we have GUI codes. GUI stands for graphical user interface. Okay, basically whatever we are seeing, whatever we are able to see is the graphical user interface of that application, UI of an application, the front end of an application. Okay, suppose we are able to see in login page, we are able to see the username and password, login and cancel button. Okay, so this is a UI of an application, the front end of an application. To test to test. And what we have in business layer, we have in business layer source code we have in business layer. And in database layer, obviously we have data in the form of tables. Okay, so in these three layers, these three things, in presentation layer we have GUI codes, and business layer we have source code, or we can say business codes. In database layer we have data in the form of tables. Now, to test the presentation layer, we are doing functional testing. Functional testing is nothing but testing each and every component thoroughly, testing each and every component, like by filling, by testing all those components by entering valid and invalid details. We can say positive and negative testing we are doing, right? So testing each and every component. Okay, one sec. Yeah, testing each and every component, we can say the functional testing we are doing in this presentation layer. We are just going, we are just entering, we are clicking on this username, we are clicking on this password, we are entering some value, username and password, and we are clicking on login button. Basically we are checking the functionality of all these components which we are able to see in this UI. Okay, so to do functional testing, there are two ways. Obviously, first one is manual testing. Manually we can enter some value in username and password, and manually we can click on login button. Okay, and second one is automation testing. By writing some codes, by looking onto the test cases, by writing some codes, testing the application automatically, we can call it as automation testing. So functional testing we are doing in presentation layer. Okay, functional testing we are doing in presentation layer in two ways. First one is manual testing, and second one is automation testing. All of we know this. Okay, now second one, in business layer, what kind of testing we are doing? Like we are testing the source code, we are not testing the GUI. If GUI is not there, if we are not able to see the user interface of an application, if we are not able to see this username and password and these all these components, then how we are going to do testing? With the help of API testing. Even if we are not, now what is API testing? Very important. See, if we are not able to see the UI of an application, if we are not able to see the UI of an, so sorry, yeah, actually I'm not feeling well from couple of past couple of days. Sorry for interruption. Yeah, so if we are not able to see the UI of an application, then how we are going to test it? If we are not able to see this username, password, login, cancel button, still if we want to do testing for an application, still if we want to do the testing for different pages, how we are going to do that? With the help of API testing, by doing API testing, we are able to test the application. When UI itself is not ready, then also we can test that application. Now, API testing can be done in two ways. API testing can be done in two ways. First one is unit testing, or we can also call it as WBT. All of we know about unit testing and WBT, like basic thing. All of we know, like what is unit testing, basically what is WBT, testing each and every line of the source code. Testing each and every line of the source code, we can call it as white box testing. And if we consider it as one unit, it is unit testing. It is done by developers, it is open box, because we are able to see the source code here. That's why we are calling it as open box testing as well. So all these things we already know, we already learned in manual testing class. Okay, so API testing can be done in two ways. First one is unit testing, and second one is web service testing. Second one is web service testing. What is this web service testing? We will understand in our future classes. And in web service testing also we have two testing. First one is SOAP web service testing, and second one is REST web service testing. First one is SOAP, and second one is REST web service testing. So whenever we are not able to see the source UI of an application, if we want to test the source code, it can be done with the help of API testing. That's why we are doing API testing. Whenever we are not able to see the UI, we are doing API testing. It can be done in two ways. First one is unit testing, second one is web service testing. Then in web service testing, SOAP web service, and then REST web service testing. Now, database layer. Last one is database layer. So, database layer is what? Database layer where we store data in the form of tables. So for to test this layer, we have database testing. We have to do. We have to do database testing. In database testing, there is one ETL testing. ETL stands for extract transfer load. Okay, but yeah, basically we are not learning database testing in this class. We are learning API testing, so we will more concentrate in this business layer, in this API testing. Okay, so let's discuss more things about this business layer. Let's go little bit deep in this. Okay, basically the first question arises if we start focusing on business layer. Okay, we are now learning about API testing. Okay, so first question arises that what is an API? What is an API? Let's understand this by taking an example. Okay, so here we have business layer. What we have in business layer? We have source code. In business layer, obviously we have source code. Now there is one test engineer. There is one test engineer. Test engineer wants to test the source code. Test engineer wants to test the source code, but he's not able to test it directly. Okay, test engineer directly wants to test the source code. Okay, but he's not able to test it directly. So what he needs, he needs a he needs kind of bridge, or we can say, yeah, there's something wall between this source code and test engineer. Okay, so through this interface, we also can call it as interface. This is a interface. One sec, one sec, just one sec. Yes. Yeah. So again, I'll tell you what is an API. Okay, first we'll know about what is an API. Basically, we have here business layer. In business layer, what we have in business layer? Obviously, we have source codes. In business layer, what we have? We have source code. Now there is one test engineer. Okay, test engineer want to test this source code directly. If he start testing the source code, but it is not possible for a test engineer, as all of we know, it is not at all possible for this test engineer to test this source code directly. So he is not able to test this source code directly. Okay, so what he will do now, he need kind of one kind of interface. Okay, he needs one kind of interface. So through this interface, now he is able to test this source code. Through this interface, now this test engineer is able to test this source code. What exactly test engineer needs? Test engineer needs one interface to test this source code. Now he is able to test this source code through this इंटरफेस. इस इंटरफेस की हेल्प से अब टेस्ट इंजीनियर इस सोर्स कोड को टेस्ट कर पा रहा है. ठीक है. Now see, now he is able to execute all this source code through this interface. Okay, basically. Now what is this interface? Interface, we can say, this is acting like a bridge or connection between this test engineer and this source code. Okay, suppose, yeah, obviously the interface is acting like a bridge or connection between this test engineer and this source code. Now what is an API? This interface also, we are calling this interface as application programming interface. We are calling this interface as application programming interface. Now what is an API? This is what API is application programming interface, which states that application programming interface acts as a bridge or connection between two programs. ठीक है, ये जो इंटरफेस है ये कैसे एक्ट कर रहा है, एक ब्रिज की तरह और कनेक्शन की तरह बिटवीन two programs. Okay, obviously test engineer is going to write a program to test this source code, and source code is nothing but a program written by developer. Okay, so one test engineer is writing program to test another program. So that's what application programming interface acts as a bridge or connection. Through this bridge or connection, he is testing the application programming interface acts as a bridge connection between two programs. Through this interface, now test engineer is able to test this source code. Okay, I know maybe you will not get that much of clarity, okay, but somehow just remember that what is an API? API acts as a bridge or connection between these two programs. Test engineer is not a program. Test engineer will write some program. If you start learning Java and Selenium, no, then in your Eclipse is what? Eclipse is what? It is integrated developing environment. It is kind of environment where we are writing codes, where we are writing programs. Okay, so test engineer is writing some program over there to test this source code through this API, that is application programming interface. So maybe in this slide you will not get that much of clarity, you will get some kind of confusion, but I'm very much sure that in my next slides or in my future classes, 100% you will get to know what exactly API is, what is the use of API, why we are using API. Okay, so as of now, please remember this API, this is which stands for application programming interface. It is acting as a bridge or connection between these two programs. Okay, guys. Okay. 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 Done. That interface. No, 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 no. Now, done. Now, what is API testing? What is API testing? We got to know what is API. Now, what is API? What is API? API is application programming interface acting as a bridge or connection between two programs. Simple definition: API stands for application programming interface. Interface. Now, interface, it is acting as a bridge or connection between two programs. Simple. Now, what is API testing? API testing, testing the interface, testing this interface between two programs. We call it as API testing. Testing the interface between two programs with respect to functionality, reliability, performance, and security is known as API testing. Okay, or testing the application is business layer is called API testing. Okay, so two definition we got to know of API testing. First one is testing the interface between two programs. We call it as API testing. First of all, what is API? API act as a bridge or connection between two programs. Now, what is API testing? Testing this interface. Testing this interface between two programs. We call it as API testing, or testing the testing it in business layer. Testing the application in business layer, we call it as API testing. Simple it is. Now, next, unit testing. What is unit testing? Suppose uh, uh, this may be complex for you. Okay, we will see. Okay, suppose we have SBI Bank. SBI Bank has developed some feature with the help of a programming language, that is Java. He has developed some features like create some modules like create account, check balance, transaction, loans, deactivate, and gold customer. Now SBI Bank the front end of these features are not ready, but SBI Bank wants to test all these modules, all these features. how how he is going to test it? Okay, he will prepare a API document. He will prepare a API document. In this API document, he will add all those modules, like he will add create account, check balance, transaction, loans, deactivate, cold customer. सारा जितना भी रहेगा, क्रिएट अकाउंट, चेक बैलेंस, जितने भी फीचर्स रहेगा इस API डॉक्यूमेंट में, वो सब कुछ बेसिकली जो एसबीआई बैंक है, एसबीआई बैंक के जो डेवलपर्स होंगे, जिन्होंने ये डेवलपर फीचर डेवलपर ने जो फीचर्स डेवलप किया है, एक लैंग्वेज के थ्रू किया है जो कि जावा है। ठीक है, कौन कौन से मॉड्यूल्स डेवलप किए हैं? ये क्रिएट अकाउंट, चेक बैलेंस, ब्ला ब्ला ब्ला, ठीक है, XYZ मॉड्यूल्स डेवलप किए हैं। अब उन डेवलपर्स ने एक एपीआई डॉक्यूमेंट रेडी किया। ठीक है, एपीआई क्या है? एक ब्रिज और कनेक्शन की तरह काम करता है दो प्रोग्राम्स के बीच में। अब देखना कैसे काम करता है। ठीक है, तो एक एपीआई डॉक्यूमेंट रेडी किया, सारा क्रिएट अकाउंट, चेक बैलेंस, ट्रांजैक्शन, जितना भी है सारे फीचर्स, उनको सबको डाल दिया। उनके जितने भी कोड्स लिखे हों, बेसिकली जितने भी जो जो जरूरी होंगे टेस्टिंग करने में, वो सारे कुछ दे दिया। ठीक है, अब टेस्ट इंजीनियर क्या करेगा? डेवलपर्स ने एक एपीआई डॉक्यूमेंट रेडी किया, एपीआई डॉक्यूमेंट में सब कुछ रेडी करके दे दिया टेस्ट इंजीनियर को। अब टेस्ट इंजीनियर क्या करेगा? आईडीई, दिस इज आईडीई इक्लिप्स। आने वाले टाइम पे आप लोग इक्लिप्स पे कोडिंग करोगे, सेलेनियम की या फिर जावा भी आप लोग कर सकते हो। ठीक है, जावा में बेसिकली बहुत लोग नोटपैड में कर रहे हैं, बेसिकली वहां पे मेथड्स लिखी रहती हैं, ऑलरेडी दी रहती है, सजेशंस में आ जाता है। ठीक है, डन। इक्लिप्स एक इंटीग्रेटेड डेवलपिंग एनवायरनमेंट रहता है, जहां पे अपन कोड्स लिखते हैं, जहां पे अपन यस कोड्स लिखते हैं। ठीक है, डन। तो यहाँ पे हम जे यूनिट टेस्टिंग टूल है। ये जैसे ऑटोमेशन टूल सेलेनियम हो गया, वैसे ही जे यूनिट एक यूनिट टेस्टिंग टूल है। ठीक है, जे यूनिट के हेल्प से हम लोग यहाँ पे टेस्टिंग कर रहे हैं, यूनिट टेस्टिंग टूल है। नाउ डेवलपर्स क्या कर रहे हैं कि देखो, एक प्रोग्राम लिख रहे हैं, बेसिकली जावा में ये रहता है ना, पब्लिक स्टैटिक वॉइड मेन। आगे जाके आप लोग पढ़ोगे, दैट्स व्हाई आई डोंट वांट टू कवर दिस यूनिट टेस्टिंग, बट स्टिल अगर समझ में भी नहीं आता है तो थोड़ा बहुत लास्ट में डेफिनेशन के लिए ये एग्जांपल लिया है मैंने। ये एग्जांपल से आप वो डेफिनेशन को समझ सकोगे। ठीक है, तो बेसिकली एक प्रोग्राम लिख रहा हूँ मैं इक्लिप्स में। ठीक है, ये देखो, मैंने एक प्रोग्राम लिखना स्टार्ट किया, और प्रोग्राम लिख के, जैसे मैंने एक प्रोग्राम लिखा अकाउंट क्रिएट करने का, फिर एक मैंने क्या किया है कि एक क्वेरी एग्जीक्यूट की है, ताकि मैं अकाउंट क्रिएटेड, जिस दिन अकाउंट ये क्रिएट हुआ था, उसकी मैं डेट चेंज कर सकूं। ठीक है, जिसकी मैं डेट चेंज कर सकूं। वन सेकंड, जस्ट गिव मी अ सेकंड।